Welcome to Mondays with Coach Rice. It's a brand new week, the sun's shining bright. A chance to cast your net, step into the light. Life's full of challenges, it's a winding stream. But with Coach Rice, you'll find your dream.
All right. Good morning and happy Monday once again. Welcome to Casting the Net. Mondays with Coach Rice, where we reeling in holistic health for your well-being. We care about your mental and physical health. And so with me today, I have a special guest, Kopakowski. I said I was going to mess that up.
There you go. There you go. You got it.
So
Kopakowski.
with me, I have Raymond Kopakowski, and I am so privileged to have him. He is a partner coach. And so Raymond, can you tell us where you from and how did you end up being a partner coach? This is the first time I've ever heard of a partner coach. Tell me more about that.
Okay. All right. Well, let me see here. Where am I from? I'm actually from Camden, New Jersey, but I lie about that all the time because people don't believe that there were any survivors of Camden. So I tell people I was raised in Philadelphia, which is a lot of where everything changed for me was in Philadelphia. And I had a great time in Philly. I was in the music industry. I was a professional singer at 9 years old. I was the youngest person ever to sing for the Lyric Opera Company. I did La Boheme when I was 9. I did Lohengrin when I was 11. I danced with the Philadelphia Ballet Company. I had a lot of fun, and for a kid who would come home and the neighbors, my mother was very sick, and I would come home and hopefully somebody brought some food over because they were taking care of my mom and doing this type of stuff. It wasn't that bad, but a lot of times it seemed that way. The stuff about being in show business really got me connected to people, and the fact that there was no difference in show business. There's no difference. You're playing a part, you're doing this. I don't care what color you are. I don't care how old you are or something like that. You're valuable to me so that the show goes over well. And it sort of like started making sense back then. I was raised very prejudiced. Camden was our neighborhood was called Pollock Town. And there was a lot of fighting. It was rough. It was rough growing up. But I think that I was being set up to be the partner coach all along. It got rough for me. I ended up I ended up smoking a cargo load full of cocaine at one point in my life. I ended up on the streets, and I ended up at AA and NA, and that was where things started to change around, and I really started to recognize that I liked helping people. After being sober for a couple of years, people started coming to me all the time. And I was like a magnet, and I had a lot of people that I was sponsoring. But I don't know if you read about it or not. There's a part about me that says that I'm a universal channel. And I think that started happening to me when I was in AA. I kept getting these messages that it was bigger than what was happening now. And my interpretation of that was that it was nice that I was helping people with alcoholism, but my purpose was greater. My purpose was to move outside of AA and to start helping people on a much larger scale. And I didn't know what that was. I tried hypnosis for a while, and that was cool. I wasn't a stage hypnotherapist. I probably should have been, but I wasn't. I didn't turn people into ducks or anything. I actually was, brought in for pre and post-op situations to hypnotize people for that. And the voices kept saying, it's not it. It's not satisfying. Something was wrong. And I made a very natural movement from hypnosis, where you have to talk to people, to talking more and more to them and less hypnosis. And I ended up being a relationship coach. And as I was doing that, I'm a very patient person. I like people. I have a lot of fun, but I was getting upset about the fact that everybody and their mother was coming to me wanting to know how to fix their relationship. And nobody was asking how to prevent bad things from happening. And I
Right.
realized that they didn't, because they didn't know any better. They were taught that men and women are at odds, women are crazy, men shut down, and I started to really look at it and went, something, husbands and wives, just the name itself is divisive. It puts you as a wife and me as a husband, and we have to act like the husbands and wives that we've known before. And everything that they taught us was very incomplete, because we didn't really see what was happening behind the scenes. We didn't basically watching our parents fight, and it gave us the idea that, that if that time heals all, and it was anything but that. So I started to realize, I started to move more towards partnership, because I recognized that people in partnerships needed equality. They needed a man and a woman to be partners. And then if one of them happens to want to act like a wife, then we would talk about that and find out how to help her be a really good wife, so that she can be the best wife she can be for the partnership. The partnership's first. If she wanted to go out and be an artist or work at a job or something like that, then the partnership has got to make sure that she gets what she needs, because otherwise it has a negative effect on the partnership. This requires people to the reason I'm called a partner coach is that I prepare people to become partners. Okay. I do partnership once people are prepared to be partners, once they understand the concept, once they understand how to question things, and most importantly, once they make a decision that they want to be happy. That's the driving force. That's the root of partnership. I want to be happy. Once they get all that, then we can say, okay, so do you want to be happy with him? Do you want to be happy with her? Then we got to figure out what to do in order for you to get your happiness. Make sense?
Oh, makes sense. That you had some prejudices. What type of prejudices, if you didn't mind,
Oh,
if you didn't
oh
mind me
God, my
asking?
my my neighbor, my neighborhood. You couldn't sit down and you couldn't have a meal without somebody saying the N word and this type of thing. And it was really, you know, I had I had a priest. I ended up leaving school in my sophomore year, and the priest, I had a big argument with him about God's ability to forgive people, and how easy it was for me to do that, and so he kicked me out of school. But he told me to, he said, well, good, now you're going to have to go to school with the chodny, and the chodny is Polish for the N word. Okay.
Oh,
And
okay.
so it was like throughout the whole thing, just I'm going to be 75, and
Oh,
so
okay.
this is a long time ago, and my neighborhood, we Camden was the Delaware River, black neighborhood, Mexican neighborhood, and black neighborhood all around us. And so it was a constant. It wasn't unusual to see or hear about one of your uncles or your dad running out of the house to get into a fight with people. It was
Okay.
rough. And so but the 60s hit, and the 60s, this okay, so Camden was rough. Camden was uh, let me see here. All of my friends, I lost 7 or 8 friends in my sophomore year of high school to heroin overdoses. One person was
Mm,
hung. One person was hung in front of our school doors. And across the street, actually, but still in front of the doors, we saw. I mean, he was a good friend of mine. We saw him hanging in the on a tree, and I'm one of the people that can tell you that without a doubt, heroin leads to smoking pot. Which is a little contrary to what most people think. And it was an interesting growing up, but early on, in probably 15 or 16 is when I started doing LSD. And that changed everything. That had a very, very dramatic effect on me. Plus the fact that, again, I was out in the streets. I was living in communes. I was playing music. I was open to all these different people. I ended up in a band called Takaiki, which I probably had no business being in, but we were the warm-up band for Miles Davis. So I've never been a
Okay.
slouch in what I've done. And constantly I replaced Jim Croce in a band. When Jim Croce went on tour with Maury Muehlhausen, and when he had his first album out, I was the guy that picked up his spot in a band called Phoenix in New Jersey, in Glassboro. So I've always been somewhat on the edge of really, really making it, and and always missing. The band that I toured with before Takaiki was a group called Gravy Train, and this was like in the late '60s, early mid '70s. And we played back alley clubs because we had two black people in the band, and we couldn't get in the mainstream, like road. What do you call it? They have like we were under Jolly Joyce agencies, and you had a circuit, that you traveled around in, and
Okay.
you followed different bands and everything. We followed Junior Walker and the All Stars. So there, I mean, I was always on one side. I'm living in Camden, with people that are scared to death and living in a specific way for survival. On the other side, I'm out in the streets with, great musicians and having a fantastic time and going into black people's homes. And, you're on the road and you eat anything, and these people would bring us into their houses and feed us and give us places to stay. And it was wonderful. I really, really enjoyed it. And so everything that I was taught as a young boy sort of melted away. And
Oh, okay. So
now, yeah.
you was able to get past the fact
Oh
that,
yeah.
you know,
Oh yeah, very, very big time. Of
prejudice.
course, now it's like I would be nothing if I had anything that prevented me from helping everybody out there. I probably wouldn't be able to help anybody. So, my thing is to be 100% open to give my message to anybody that wants to listen, to help them have a better life, to help them, enjoy who they are. That's what I'm trying to do, you know? So,
Awesome. Awesome. And so partnerships. Who is your ideal clients?
my client needs two things pretty much. My client needs to be able to inhale and most importantly, exhale. There you go.
Okay. Tell me more about that.
See, the idea about partnership is across the board. We have all been living with the idea about being in relationships, and everybody who wants to be happy, and I don't care who you are, and I don't care where you're from, I don't care any of that kind of stuff. Anybody can want to be happy. And anybody that wants to be happy, that's my demographic.
Okay.
And people have tried at different times to put me into some kind of genre. What am I trying to do? And I fight it tooth and nail because I don't want to be in a genre. I don't want to do any of that kind of. I want to reach out there, and anybody that takes a breath in and exhales it and says I want to be happy. That's who I want to help. That's where my information comes from. And you know, um, it's not my information though. It's
Okay.
this is not my information. This is 100% channeled. I don't know where it comes from outside of the fact that I seem to hear voices. Maybe that's from the 60s. I see images. Maybe that's from the 60s. I don't know. But but I trust it. I trust sometimes when I'm talking to somebody and I feel as though something, not all the time, but I do feel occasionally like I'm pushed to the side. And I hear myself talking, and it's the first time I've heard these things. It's absolute first time that I've heard what comes through me. I'm glad for it to go through me, but I'm very fearful of taking credit for it because I have a feeling that if I said, this is my information and I came up with it and I thought it, well, it was a lie anyway. But if I did that, then I'd be responsible for the next thought. And I don't know how I got this one.
Okay.
So I really want to keep it open, give out the message. It's not my message. So to me, it just makes absolute sense that it's everybody's message. You want to be
Okay.
happy? I'll teach you how to be happy. I'll show you the way. And you might want to say, oh, so how do you be happy? And have you seen my book? Did you see?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so my book, I'll show you. My book is, let's see if you can see that.
Oh, yes,
You
I
know,
did see
okay, so relationship is crossed out because relationship is very secondary now. But this area here, that healthy selfishness is really the key to finding your happiness. In a relationship, if I don't listen to my wife, if I don't understand her, if I don't treat her well, if she doesn't feel important, if she doesn't feel like an equal, she's going to be a pain. So that's going to reflect on me. That's going to make my life miserable. I get guys all the time. I still bring in clients. I still have a private practice. And if anybody's interested, come and see me. If you understood the complexity of women, women are not men. Men try to think that women are supposed to act, and women try to think that men are supposed to act like women. It doesn't work. We're very different. All the things that men have been taught about women, about how crazy they are, they never let anything go, they always bring stuff back up, they're emotional, they're all these kinds of things, are really superpowers that women can bring to a partnership. Those things are very valuable within a partnership, but they're not valuable when two people are against each other, when they're
right.
pitted against each other as a husband and wife. So this whole thing, really, there's so much in this idea about partnership that is really, really good for women to find their power, because if they do find their power and they do know how to talk to a man without cornering him, without stressing him out, without making him feel like he's being judged, if they learn how to do that, then the two people are going, something, we can work very well together. And she can get that partnership that she was raised with, the idea about, and I is another thing. When a child is born, it's female, you give it a dolly. If it's male, you give it a dump truck and some dirt. How is that supposed to work together? We're brought up completely different. So women have a propensity towards having relationships, towards being loving, towards having a family, and they've been cornered so that they can't bring those things out. They've been told all these lousy things about themselves that prevent them from actually doing and getting the things that are important to them. And those things that women want, it's not like men are going to hurt by having good communication. I don't think that women really want to run the roost. I think that women want
No,
to
they
be
don't.
part. Yeah, I
They
think they
want to
want to
be
be heard, and
partners.
you know, my it took me a couple of years to write this book. Well, it went through 3 renditions. Janet, my honey, we've been together for 29 years. Um, she, my name is on the book.
Mhm.
She didn't want her name on the book. You know, I would gladly put her name on the book. She says, none of those are my words. I said, yeah, but all the attention, all the periods, all the commas, all the way it was laid out, that was all you. And it's you because you wanted me to be successful.
Mm.
You wanted me to, if I came up with all this kind of stuff, you wanted to be my partner. And that's, as my partner, you do what you're absolutely best at and what you want to do. Yeah. Well, I finished the book and I set it down and I went, it's done. It's done. I'm so happy and I'm going to send it into the publisher. And she said, let me read it one more time. And I'm a guy. I'm still susceptible to all this stuff and everything just because I'm some kind of spiritual guru, no, it's probably not the truth. So she said, let me read it one more time. And Martha, I'm telling you, I went, okay, all right. So I handed her the book and she about 4 or 5 pages into the book and she said, is this what you meant? And I said, yeah, sure, it's what I meant. She said, read it. I read it and I went, yeah, it's not what I meant. Oh, damn
Oh,
it.
that is amazing.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
She
that's amazing.
she she just sees things that I cannot see. Men are task oriented. We want to go in there and fix stuff and be done with it. And she wants to make sure that if it goes out, nobody puts that book down because there was a comma missing. She's
Right.
not gonna have that.
And that's the partnership that you're referring to,
Yeah, yeah. And they
where
and the
one,
and the absolute idea about that is that as partners, our job is to make sure that I'm the best partner she can have, and she's the best partner that I can have. It's you change focus. You change focus on everything. Communication is completely different in a partnership than it is in a relationship. Communication takes on an entirely different formula of sorts. My job inside a partnership, if I'm trying to communicate, I have got to do the one thing that I can control in communication, and that's if I listen.
Mhm.
I can control that. I can't control whether you listen. I can't control that. I can talk at you, and most likely, if we're not if we're not in a really healthy spot, most likely that control is second I start to talk to you, you're going to fall back on going, oh God, not this again. What does he want this time? All that kind of stuff. The assumptions come into play,
Right.
you know. But if I say, hang on a second, we need to talk about this. Give me a second. Let me get my head together. Okay, I'm ready. I'm ready. Go ahead. Tell me what it is that's going on. I'm ready to listen to you. Okay.
Okay.
I'm ready to listen. And then she does the same thing. I'm ready to listen to you. Okay. Communication is very different. Oh,
How do you see it in a relationship?
well, people try their best, but it really doesn't. They don't have the idea that there's a likelihood that what they know about relationships is either wrong or it's incomplete. And that's the thing that I found with relationships is that it's wrong. What we're taught is wrong or it's incomplete. We don't know how to be close to each other. So we follow what everyone else has done over across the millennia. People have been married for an awful long time, and for an awful long time, men went out and they killed a pig and they brought it back to the house and she cooked it and they did all that stuff and that's what worked out. We're not like that anymore. We really need for people to step up, and that's something about the partnership that I really believe that partnership is the next step to adulthood. And the only problem that we have is people think that we're already adults. They think think that we're as good as it gets, and we're all smart and everything like that, but we're dumb in comparison to where we could be. We could work together and we could learn all this stuff. And with the computers out now and people watching each other, we need each other to be equals more than ever.
Oh,
And the first
yes.
and the first thing now there's a lot of people that come to me, and as we're working, they said, I didn't realize that we could be in a relationship if that's what we decide. But we have to be partners first. We have to be
Mm.
partners first, and then, so the saying that I have is people in relationships are seldom partners. People in partnerships can have great relationships if they decide.
Oh,
You
I
know?
like that. Yeah, I like that. I like to
Okay.
differentiate. I like how you differentiate that because it is true.
Yeah. You know. So yeah, it's a really really cool thing. And I'm just so I, I'm I'm so excited to have the information. I'm so honored to have the information. I can't tell you. I sit sometimes at night and go, just go ahead and whatever you want me to do, I'm here. I'll do it. Wherever you want me to go, whatever you want me to do, I'll absolutely do it because I I've never read a word of this anywhere.
Wow.
I have never listened to anybody, like these guys that are, spiritual. They've written wonderful books, and Tony Robbins and Deepak and all this kind of stuff. They're always referencing the other people that they read and
Right.
what book it's from and all this kind of stuff. I don't have any of that. I have a disorder that even when I was young, I have a disorder that if I read something, next day it's gone. I don't remember what I
Mm.
read, and so it's a attention kind of thing. So with this, I just didn't read, and now people will suggest because I'm really hip deep in this whole idea about developing partnership. And people will constantly say, "Oh, you need to read this book. You need to read that book." And I don't want to read it. I don't want to read it now. I didn't read it before, but I really don't want to read it now. I don't want to interfere with the flow of what I'm
Information.
getting. Yeah, it's universal. It's universal information, and it's that kind of information because we're all connected. Everything is made up of the same stuff. We're all absolutely part and parcel of everybody else out there. And we really do need to work together. We need to work together, and we need to take another step forward so that we can progress, so we
Yes,
can,
we do. We definitely need to work together. You're right about that.
uh, yeah. So,
So, in your practice,
yeah.
what would you say one of the things you you have accomplished with one of your clients that you could say, "Wow, I was proud of."
Um, I had a girl come to me when I had my office. I had a young girl, and she was probably about 19 or 20, and she showed up at my door, and she stood at the door, and she said, "I don't know if this is the right thing for me." And I said, "How can I help you? What can I do?" She said, "I really wanted to talk to a woman, but I was led to talk to you." And I said, "Well, I have a very strong feminine side, so you're like half right. It ain't a problem." And I said, "What's the problem?" And she goes, are you okay dealing with women's issues?" And I thought, and initially myself inside of me, I thought maybe she was raped. there's maybe she's a lesbian, maybe there's all these things. I don't know. But I said, I tried to reassure her and say, there's nothing you're going to say that I'm going to judge you about, and let's be honest about this. Before it's a woman's issue, it's a human being's issue. So,
Mm,
let's deal with it from there. And I said, come on in. And she sat down, and that's when the channeling happened. And I said, before I work with you, I said, I'm going to need you to go home and do something for me. And she goes, okay. And I said, I want you to go home, and I want you to take all your clothes off and lay in bed. And I want you to say, these are my toes, and this is the top of my foot, and this is the bottom of my foot, and this is my ankle, and this is my calf, and this are my knees, and on, go up to the top of your head. I said, and I want you to repeat that about 3 or 4 times. And if anything happens there, anything comes to mind, I said, I want you to, you call me back, and then we'll work together. And she said, okay. We hadn't talked about anything. And she called me up about, like later in the week, 4 or 5 days later, and she said, what did you do? And I said, I don't know. I said, I don't know. I was told, given that message and told to tell you to do that. I said, what happened? And she said, my yeast infection is gone. And I was like, what? And she said, I've had a yeast infection for 8 or 9 years. She goes, I
mm,
can't get rid of it. And I said, and then it came to me, is that she was raised very strict religious background, and she was not allowed to recognize her vagina, so she was not able to heal it. And the reason that
mm,
she was not able to do that is because there was a man in her room that had a green flannel shirt on, and he approached her bed, and that's the most that I could pick up on it. And she said it was her uncle, and her uncle was coming
mm.
in. Her uncle was coming in to molest her, and that's where all this stuff happened. And I think that that's, if anything, it sticks out in my mind for me to know that it wasn't me. That was not me. I saw those things. I was shown all that kind of stuff. I still get those kinds of images with people, but I don't have any control over it. I'm not, like a lot of people. A lot of people are psychics and stuff like that. I'm not. I'm a vessel, you know. But
Oh,
that, you know.
so what do you think the touching of her body parts? What do you think that did for her?
Well, I was not. I was pretty sure. I was pretty sure that it had something to do with familiarity. And I was pretty sure that that her doing that kind of stuff, she was going to have difficulty in the beginning, going up her thighs. This are my hips. This is my vagina. This is my stomach. These are my breasts and all that stuff. And not saying, these are my. This is my thighs. These are my hips. This is my vagina. Very different. She could accept every part of her. She could own every part of her, and the body knows how to heal itself. And I think what was happening here is that until she could accept the fact that she had a vagina, she was not going to be able to accept the fact that there was a man that was abusing her.
Okay.
She needed to know that connection. She needed to be able to feel that so that she could heal that way. She shut that part out of her mind. Her mother told her, she went to her mother and told her what had happened, when she was a little girl. Her mother said, your uncle would never do that, and denied the whole thing and told her to shut up, and she was being stupid, and this kind of thing, which happens a lot for women.
Right. It happens a lot.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. And it's heartbreaking. It's like, how do people do that kind of thing and especially to a young woman? That's terrible. So I think if anything that stands out, the other things that stand out to me that I find is that people with power really do need this. There's a period of time that I had probably three or four doctors, a couple of them surgeons, and like really high up there kind of people who absolutely need to be right, and they need to be strong and all this stuff. And I'm telling them that something, you're doing yourself a disservice. It will not hurt you to be a partner first. Connect with somebody, know that she has your back, know that you're loved before you walk into any kind of surgical theater. That was the whole thing. You're not alone when you're doing this kind of thing. You are
Right.
connected, and that puts you as your own entity. That puts you out in front of being a surgeon. I'm a human being with a partner, with a partnership, and I happen to be a surgeon.
Mm,
I'm a person first. Because
right.
one day you're not going to be a surgeon anymore. One day you're not going to run a huge law practice or be a CEO someplace. All that's going to fall apart on you. And are you going to be alone at that point? More than likely. More than likely. A big thing with people is that how could we be sitting there at nighttime together and be alone? How's that happen? We're together
Right.
10 years. I've been together 29 years. And I can tell you that probably maybe a little bit more than a handful of times in 29 years when we were together did she not get a foot massage. She loves foot massages, and so I'm telling you, it's probably under 10 times in all of those years that she did not get a foot massage. That kind of connection,
Wow.
feeling that. And she went to see our grandkids this week. Well, her grandkids, and they're mine too, but Ray, just she claims them more than I do anyway. So yeah, but we miss each other, and we're talking, and it's nice to have that. It's nice to have that. What are you going to do when I'm away? Well, I'm going to sit here and cry.
Right.
I'm going to sit here and cry and stuff, and like that. But I'll probably finish a book that I'm writing, which I did. I
Oh,
gotta, I
okay.
gotta, I
So
gotta.
you got another book coming out.
Well, yeah. So last week, about maybe a week and a half ago, I wake up in the middle of the night, and that's where all my good ideas come from. That in the shower.
Yeah.
Everybody gets the shower. I get 3 o'clock in the morning, and I get this image, and so I go and I write it down, and it says the boy with the invisible arrow. So I don't know what the hell that is. Sure, I write it down and everything. Now I have a book. I've got the whole book. It just I sat there and started to type it and started to write it all out. And
Mhm.
so I've got, now I got to wait till she comes back. And I talked with her about it a little bit, and it's about morals, and it's about teaching kids how to value things. And I really, again, it's like, I want to write down, by Ray Kopakowski and somebody else. Who the hell knows? Because it just comes to me. So I'm excited about that, though. I didn't I
That's
didn't
awesome.
expect I didn't expect writing a kid's book.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So what else do you have in store for the future?
I'm, I see things. I see things right now. I want to do Zoom classes, I want to go ahead and start to do Zoom seminars and things and bring
Oh,
people.
okay. Sounds
Yeah.
great.
So I'm going to go out. I'm going to go out to some of these new age places, and I'm going to talk. I'm going to do talks for the moment before I actually do the Zoom classes. The Zoom classes are going to be 5 easy steps. Actually, I changed it. Never mind. 5 easy steps to a loving partnership, and so that's what that's going to be. But I want my classes to be like this. I don't want to stand on a stage and talk at people. I don't want to do that,
Oh, okay.
you know. And
You
so
want that
some of that,
dialogue.
yeah. And so some of it is going to be like, can I go on stage, a big stage, which I can imagine me being in front of a few thousand people and talking to them and trying to get this point across here. And I don't want people to think of me as a teacher. I
Okay.
want them I
Okay.
want them yeah, I want them to know what I am. I'm a guy that the universe said, yeah, he's not doing anything. Let's use him. And that's what I'm
Okay.
here for. I'm here to give out the
Okay.
message.
I definitely can relate to a lot of stuff that you're saying. We are human first, and if we attach ourselves to anything other than that, when it falls, we lose our identity,
Yeah.
and
You know,
that could be
yeah,
that could be problematic.
yeah, you're absolutely right. And I just think that humanity on the whole is ready for another step forward. I really believe that this idea is really about is really what we all need. We need to be closer. We need to be connected, and yeah, I hope I'm around long enough to get the point out there.
Yeah. You are definitely where we need to be, and the fact that you want to do the Zoom classes, this is where we at right now. So you're right in the right spot for that. So
I hope so.
that's great.
Yeah.
So if you could give my audience, if you can get an audience one piece of advice, what would it be?
Well, audience, one piece of advice. Yeah, don't be afraid if you're going to try and have a better life. Don't be afraid to look at the information that you have and not judge yourself because of it. You know, everything that we've been taught was taught to us with good intention. Absolutely.
Hmm.
Nobody wanted us to do it. And now we're finding out that uh, maybe the best that we got out of that is a real strong ability to tolerate each other, but we didn't get the ability to get close. So my
Mm.
my 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 real good information for people is decide that you want to be happy and then really make it so I want to be happy. And then when you want to be happy with somebody else, accept the responsibility that it'll take for you to be happy with someone else.
Um, how can the audience reach you if they need to?
Oh, sure. Thank you. You can, anybody that wants to connect with me, go to ray.innerpower@gmail.com. That will get you to me. You can call me at 602-487-4805. And at least for now, the book Universal Guide, and guys, don't be afraid of this book too. Universal Guide to a Healthy Selfish Relationship/Partnership is not it. I've had some people go, oh, it's a guide, it's going to be technical. It's anything but technical. It's funny. It's written like poetry, and people always say it's like having a conversation with you, which is that's exactly what I wanted. I wanted people to be able to read that and hear my voice and just go like we're talking together. and that I'm not talking at you because because we're connected. I don't need to do that.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Well, I am so grateful that you decided to allow me to interview you and get to know you better. And my audience, if you feel like you struggling with happiness or need to understand what partnership is, please reach out to Raymond, and I'll put his information in the video as well. But thank you so much for listening.
Martha,
We
thank you. I
t-
I need these opportunities, so I appreciate it very, very,
oh,
very
it's
much.
it's my pleasure, and I know I'll probably see you on more platforms. And just
Yeah.
thank you for showing up today and allowing the audience to see what you do. We never
Hmm.
know who might need
Never
to talk
know.
to you. You never know. So if you feel like this has been a blessing to you, please do share so that people can see it. So we can always connect with one another. Don't suffer in silence. There's so much help out here. So
Yeah.
we care about your mental health and well-being. And so we just wanted to
It's
say
your
thank you for
time to
listening, and we are
shine.
signing
The
off.
journey's a chart. Coach Rice wisdom will heal every heart. So join us now. Let's make life suffice. Welcome to Mondays with Coach Rice.